everybody on YouTube, it's me, the Student Witch. So, long time no see. I apologize for that, but it's the end of the semester and this has been a crazy semester. I'm just ready for it to be done and over with. I'm ready to go back down to the south and spend the summer with my husband in Georgia, or at least most of the summer. But yeah, I'm here to share a beautiful surprise, and I've actually had this surprise, or I got it probably a week and a half ago, but I just haven't had time to film anything until today. So my husband, because he's the best person I could ever want or wish to spend my life with, he got me a surprise. And he knew exactly what I wanted, or what I've had my eyes on, because over spring break, when I was down there visiting him, I had mentioned this just in passing. I showed him some of the images that I really liked and I really connected with, but I was planning on buying this for myself probably at the end of the summer, because I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. Well, he remembered, and he's really good at paying attention when you're not looking. So he got this for me now because he thought I deserved it, and he knew it would make me happy. So, without further ado, he got me the Mary L. Tarot. Dun dun dun. This is my first non-Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I've had my eye on this deck for, God, probably 6 months, but I knew I wasn't ready for it, that I needed to do more studying, because I've really only been practicing and working with the tarot since last year, since last May 2015, so not even a full year yet. But as soon as I saw some of the reviews and some of the unboxing videos, I just knew this is my deck. This is my non-Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which I still love my Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I still have it on my altar and I work with it every day, my card of the day. But the imagery here is just, on the Mary L. Tarot, it's exactly how my brain works, I guess is the best way that I can put it. I've pulled out, I'm not going to do an unboxing or go through each one of the cards, but I pulled out some of my favorites. And I'm going to start with the High Priestess card, which is just gorgeous. I love that it has a primal feel to it. Primal, very earthy, wild feel to it. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the blurb here in the book about the High Priestess. And the book is really nice. It's really thick. It's a decent sized book. It doesn't have color pictures, but it has a picture of every single card and a description of the card. So for the High Priestess, and I also love all the influences in these cards. I love the fact that it's a diverse deck, as in human and non-human shows up, but also, people of color show up, which is very refreshing. So okay. The High Priestess. I am all that has been, and is, and shall be, and my robe no mortal has yet uncovered. Ebzu, temple of the abyss, Eagura, temple of the subterranean waters. She is the Hymen priestess, guardian of the gate of life and death with a veil of flesh. She parts her parchment scroll or columnar legs to reveal the wisdom within. If you pull aside her veil, there may be several drops of blood like crimson pomegranate seeds to show that you passed that way. The High Priestess is the counterpart of the Magician. He is the masculine energy, Yang, and she is the feminine void, the Yin. He is day, she is night. He is radiation, brilliance, and illumination. She is darkness and secrets. He is without, she is within. Together, they are our spiritual mother and father and heavenly king and queen. So I love the idea of the High Priestess with Lilith, the High Priestess as this primordial chaos creatrix goddess, and she has the big pregnant belly and the swollen breasts of fertility possibility. She is the void into which creation began. I love the sexual imagery, like the overt sexual imagery in this deck, but also specifically with this card, even the description of the card, the High Priestess as the veil, the hymen, the veil between what is manifest and what is the void, emptiness. I love it. It's a great image. It's almost like the High Priestess is the cervix, because the cervix is the muscle that separates, the vagina from the inside, the uterus, right? It's that veil, it's that separation, and then it opens at the time of birth, and you pass through the veil from non-being into being, right? So, I love this card. Some of the other cards that I love, and this one's kind of weird. I know in some of the other unboxing videos, people have mentioned that this card kind of freaks them out because it's very dark imagery. And also because of the card itself, it's not an easy card to relate to. And here it is. It's the Hierophant. The Hierophant in general, I would say, represents that more structured learning. It's a great image for academia and institutions, like institutionalized learning, which unfortunately a lot of institutionalized learning or institutionalized spirituality nowadays, for a while, at least in the Western world, has been very oppressive. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. Institutionalized learning, or an institutionalized way to gnosis, is still a very beautiful, empowering idea. And this is what the Hierophant means to me, especially as a person in academia. And I love the fertility imagery. I love that it's, I guess, a more feminine image with the breasts and breastfeeding. And this goes for a lot of the cards. I love the human contact, like skin to skin contact in a lot of these cards. It's very intimate. So that transmission of knowledge as a transmission of nutrients, like breastfeeding, I love this card, and I love that it's kind of creepy. Death. The Death card is one of my favorite cards in this deck, hands down. I love that it's a celebration of death. It's not perpetuating that very Western monotheistic idea of death as a punishment. It's the idea of death as a natural process, and death as part of the cycle, because after death there is rebirth. Because here we see these flowers, and even there's a praying mantis. I love the praying mantis on her head. And I also love that it's an old woman, and actually she reminds me of some of those old wise women that you meet out in the countryside, like in Appalachia or in rural regions like that. A woman who's like in her 90s, but she still goes out and works in her garden every day. Like one of those kind of badass women. I think it's a celebration of also aging, because unfortunately women nowadays in the media anyway, and in Western cultures, women are valued less as they age. Right? You're only seen as desirable from the male perspective, the heteronormative male perspective, if you're like 20 years old. So your value as a human being is tied to your reproductive capacity. So as women age and they move out of at least the sexual reproductive years, then their value depletes and they're not respected and they're not seen as beautiful. But obviously we are, all women are. So, and our value shouldn't be tied to just our reproductive capacity. There's other ways to be fertile and creative, right? So this death card, it's one of the most beautiful. It's a very peaceful, empowering view of death. So I love that. The Queen of Wands is amazing. And she reminds me so much of those ancient Venus statues, like the Venus of, oh, I can't remember their names, but those very ancient, like I'm talking from 20, 30,000 years ago, in like the Mesopotamian region and also in Europe. Some of the very first artistic representations of the human form, they're all female and they're all these big, voluptuous, beautiful, fertile, curvy goddess images. And so the Queen of Wands, it has that fiery energy. Again, not a white European person, which is nice. And she's just like full of power. I love it. The Ten of Swords is another amazing death image. And if you remember the Ten of Swords in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, it's the person laying on the ground with 10 swords in their back. This has a very, the horseman of the apocalypse kind of death image to it. But it's still beautiful. I love that the horse, the face of the horse is its skull and the scythe. Just very dark, and I love it. Speaking of dark, the Tower is another one of my favorite cards because it's the Statue of Liberty in flames. And this card is just, I mean, when I think of the Tower, one of the first words that come to my mind is disillusionment. And this is definitely disillusionment. It's disillusionment or disenchantment in modernity, and those promises of progress that modernity made, those false promises. It's also really refreshing to have these more modern references and images in the cards. So yeah, I'm taking a class right now about advertising and consuming in Latin America in the years since neoliberalism has been implemented in Latin America, about consumption, sex work, advertising, all sorts of things. And so one of the first readings we did was about neoliberalism and how the promises of freedom of neoliberalism, and even liberalism, if you go back to the French Revolution and that whole égalité, fraternité, fraternity, equality, in egalitarianism, you know, that famous 3-word phrase of the French Revolution, how that, again, is kind of a false, empty promise. Um, so with neoliberalism, this idea of freedom, which is tied to consumption, you're only free based on how much you can participate in capitalism and produce and consume. So, like, thinking about freedom based on how much you can buy. And is that necessarily the best idea of freedom? Because what do we have to give up in order to buy? It's really fascinating stuff. Anyway, I love this card. Sorry for the nerd rant. And a couple of other cards, kind of going along the same lines as the Tower as far as modern images go. The Four of Swords, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it. From far away, it's a beautiful kind of cloud scene with like an open field, but then if you look closer, you see the factory chimneys piping out smoke. So the fours, to me, fours is a duality. It's a duality of two dualities, because the number 2 is a duality, and then a 4 is a set of twos, right? So it's a very stable number, and stability is great. Like, if you think of the Emperor, this is the card I drew for myself this morning. The Emperor is very stable, right? Which is, it can be a good thing, but stability can often turn into stagnation. And I think that's what these factories piping out smoke and pollution are supposed to call to your attention. Stagnation and the dangers of stagnation, how stagnation can lead to destruction and wastefulness. So I love that card for that reason. And then just really quickly, the World. The World card is beautiful. I love that she's blindfolded and that the wheel is in her yoni, what's it called? The female triangle region. Again, that idea of chaos and the creatrix goddess imagery. I love the Ace of Wands. The 4 aces are beautiful in general, but the Ace of Wands, since Wands to me is that fire element, movement, manifestation, I love that the lion face goes from still and peace to fierceness, and it shows that movement through. And I also love that all the wands are their gender or their section, their gender is ambiguous, because you see the phallic element but also the female element at the same time, the hermaphrodite idea, and that kind of goes to alchemy and the hermaphrodite, the sacred marriage of the masculine and the feminine, and that ties in really nicely with all 4 of the aces. And I guess lastly, the Queen of Cups. The cup cards, well, all the cards are just gorgeous, but she's just so gorgeous. I love that she has a crab down here. So, yeah, my husband is the best, and it really brightened my day when I got that package in the mail, and these cards are just gorgeous. If you're looking for a deck that's really going to help you with shadow work, and if you don't mind some more darker imagery, the Marielle Tarot it's worth looking into. It's not whimsical, which whimsical decks can be fun too, but I was just attracted to this deck because of how it had so many elements in it. The human and the non-human, the diversity of the deck, and just the different layers of meaning, because as you go through and read the description for each card, and you see how many different sources that the author, Marie White, used as she painted each of these individual cards, it's just mind-blowing. And yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. So that was my video. I don't know when you guys are gonna see me again, maybe when I'm in Georgia, because like I said, I have a lot of shit to do. But yeah, I have the best husband for me, ever. And I'm so thankful and grateful to have him in my life, because he gives me beautiful things like the Mary L. Tarot. Okay, bye everybody.